There are three things the galaxy knows about assassin NX-427. She never fails, she never shows mercy, and she absolutely never gets involved in her target's personal lives. The first two are still true, at least for now. I should probably mention that I'm X-4227, though these days I go by Nova. It sounds more professional than explaining that my species names their children after chemical compounds. Try introducing yourself as X-4227 at a high society gathering and watch how quickly people excuse themselves to get more drinks. Speaking of drinks, I was nursing something fluorescent and probably toxic at the Galaxy's Edge Lounge when my latest contract came in. The target was broadcast directly to my ocular implants, which is always inconvenient when you're trying to enjoy overpriced alien cocktails. But business is business, and I'm nothing if not professional. The holographic display showed a thoroughly unremarkable human male. James Chen, age 34, occupation, information technology specialist, Earth-born, residing in New Singapore Space Colony. The price on his head? Enough to buy a small moon. Something wasn't adding up. Let me walk you through my standard pre-assassination checklist. High-ranking political figure? No. Corrupt corporate executive? No. Intergalactic crime lord? Not unless he was running his empire between help desk tickets. This James Chen looked about as dangerous as a Venusian sheep, which, contrary to popular belief, are actually quite cuddly. The contract details scrolled past my eyes. Apparently, Mr. Chen had accidentally accessed some highly sensitive corporate data while doing routine system maintenance for Galactic Dynamics Corporation. A classic case of wrong place, wrong time, wrong keystroke. The corporation wanted him eliminated before he understood what he had seen. Simple enough. I accepted the contract with a blink, paid for my drink with another, and headed for my ship. The vessel, like myself, was designed for efficiency rather than comfort. No need for luxury when most of your passengers are either yourself or soon-to-be-dead targets. I speculated about the possibility of a weapon, a tool that wouldn't block light for a good day. The trip to New Singapore Space Colony took 3 standard days, during which I reviewed everything about James Chen, his daily routines, his workplace, his favorite synthetic coffee shop. But something in his file gave me pause, a detail that would complicate things in ways I couldn't yet imagine. Target subject maintains primary custody of dependent, Lucy Chan, age 6. I've eliminated plenty of parents before. It's not like the galaxy is running short on orphans. But something about this detail nagged at me. Maybe it was the way his file showed him rearranging his entire work schedule around his daughter's school hours, or the monthly deposits into a college fund that he maintained even when his own account ran low. The fatal tag Zeitfeld cause globalist and filled with monumental precedent for Germany. The New Singapore Space Colony looked like someone had taken old Earth architecture and decided it needed more neon and floating platforms. I set up my surveillance post in an abandoned maintenance hub overlooking Chen's apartment complex. The optical enhancers in my eyes zoomed in on his unit, 2187. That's when I saw them together for the first time. James Chen was wearing what had to be the galaxy's most awful dad sweater, covered in what appeared to be cartoon Earth animals doing mathematics. His daughter Lucy was perched on his shoulders, wearing makeshift cardboard wings covered in holographic stickers. "Hiya, Dad. I need to practice flying for when I become a spaceship." "Careful there, Captain Lucy. The space station has height restrictions." I watched him spin her around, both of them laughing like they were the only two beings in the galaxy. My internal targeting system automatically calculated 17 different ways to eliminate him right there. I ignored all of them. Listen, I'm not going soft. I'm a professional. The best in the business. It's just that killing someone while they're playing with their kid is tacky. There's an art to assassination, a certain elegance required. At least, That's what I'd told myself as I continued my surveillance. I had no idea then that this simple contract was about to become the most complicated job of my career, and not just because Lucy Chen would soon catch me infiltrating their apartment and insist I join her emergency tea party with Mr. Snuggles, her stuffed Martian bear. But we'll get to that part. First, I had to figure out why a mid-level IT specialist who spent his weekends making heart-shaped pancakes for his daughter had a bounty on his head big enough to buy a small moon. And why, for the first time in my career, I was hoping I wouldn't have to collect it. You know what they never teach you in assassin school? How to deal with 6-year-olds? They should really add that to the curriculum, right between Advanced Poison Brewing and Creative Airlock Accidents 101. I had planned everything perfectly. James Chen always worked late on Thursdays, leaving his daughter with the elderly neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez. Except this Thursday, the universe decided to test my patience. As I was silently making my way down the apartment corridor, my chameleonic skin matching the hideous floral wallpaper, a small voice pierced my professional calm. "Why are you the same color as the flowers?" Froze. Now, I've had my cover blown in some spectacular ways before, but never by someone barely tall enough to reach my knee holsters. Lucy Chen stood there in rainbow pajamas, clutching that ridiculous stuffed Martian bear, looking at me with the kind of innocent curiosity that makes hardened killers question their career choices. "I'm not," I lied, quickly shifting my skin to its natural blue tone. "You must be imagining things." "Cool. Are you a chameleon, lady? We learned about them in school, but none of them were blue or had so many weapons. Remember what I said about kids and survival instincts? Apparently Lucy Chen had none. She should have been terrified. Instead, she was looking at my hidden arsenal with the same excitement she probably reserved for candy stores. "Mrs. Rodriguez had to go home because her pet Venusian slug got sick," Lucy announced, as if this explained everything. "Dad says I'm not supposed to talk to strangers, but you're not a stranger because I already know you can change colors and have lots of cool gadgets. Want to come to my emergency tea party?" Let me be clear, I don't do tea parties. I've infiltrated high-security facilities, assassinated planetary governors, and once took out an entire crime syndicate during their annual picnic. But something about this small human's expectant face made my carefully honed survival instincts malfunction. I began, but Lucy was already tugging on my hand, completely unfazed by its alien temperature. "Mr. Snuggles gets lonely when Dad works late, and he says, you look like you need friends." The stuffed bear stared at me accusingly. Great. Now I was feeling judged by inanimate objects. "Neat." There was a knock at the door. Before I could formulate a professional response, like jumping out the nearest window, Lucy had somehow maneuvered me into their apartment and seated me at a tiny table. A plastic crown was unceremoniously placed on my head. "You're the space princess," Lucy declared, arranging a collection of mismatched cups. "Mr. Snuggles is the royal advisor, and I'm the captain of the space pirates who captured you, but now we're friends, because that's how the best stories go." I've attended diplomatic functions on 12 different planets, but none of them had protocol as complex as this tea party. There were apparently very specific rules about how space princesses should hold their cups, pinky out, even if you have 3 of them, and the proper response to Mr. Snuggles's political advice, which Lucy provided in a gruff voice that sounded nothing like a bear. That's when I heard the front door open. In my defense, I had 17 different escape routes planned. What I hadn't planned for was Lucy's death grip on my arm and her stage whispered, "You can't leave yet. We haven't even gotten to the space cookies." James Chan walked in, arms full of grocery bags, and froze. Here's what he saw. The galaxy's deadliest assassin, wearing a plastic tiara, holding a tiny pink teacup, while his daughter carefully arranged star-shaped cookies on a plate decorated with unicorns. "Oh," he blinked. "Oh, you must be new to the building. "Lucy, honey, what did we say about inviting people over without asking?" "But Dad, she's a space princess." And she was alone in the hallway looking sad. I wasn't looking sad. I was looking for the optimal angle to complete my mission. "But try explaining that to a 6-year-old. "I'm Nova," I said, because apparently that's what you say when you're caught having tea with your target's daughter. "I just moved in. Down the hall," I added, because one lie deserves another. Again came the feeling I had to get away, but Dallas got my flight without a problem. "Well, Nova, would you like to stay for dinner? It's the least I can offer after Lucy hijacked your evening. I'm making my famous spaghetti and meatballs. Famous mainly because it's the only thing I can cook without setting off the building's fire suppression systems. Here's what you should know about James Chen. When he smiles, it reaches his eyes in a way that makes you forget about things like contracts and professional obligations. It's probably a good thing most of my species can't blush." "I really shouldn't," I began. "Monaco, look, please." Lucy's eyes grew impossibly wider. "Dad makes the best space noodles, and Mr. Snuggles says you're too skinny." That bear was really starting to get on my nerves. So instead of completing my mission, I found myself sitting at the Chen family dinner table, watching James Chen attempt to twirl spaghetti with more enthusiasm than skill, while Lucy regaled us with a detailed account of her future career as a space pirate princess veterinarian. "You'll need a good education for that," James told her seriously. "But first, eat your vegetables. Can't be a space pirate without proper nutrition." Actually, I found myself saying, the pirate queen of the Andromeda sector is strictly carnivorous. Both Chens stared at me. "Just something I read," I muttered, shoving a meatball into my mouth. As I sat there, listening to Lucy's giggles and James's terrible space puns, I had a disturbing thought. In all my years of surveillance and assassination, I had never actually sat down and had dinner with a target. We're not supposed to. It humanizes them. Or maybe that was the point. Have you ever tried explaining to your handler why you haven't eliminated a simple IT technician after 3 days of surveillance? Try doing it while hiding in a bounce castle. After the blackmail event, confiscation was up to 40% higher for IT professionals at larger RFCs, but it didn't significantly increase the size of the operation. Target elimination has been delayed. I whispered into my subdermal communicator, ducking to avoid a spray of birthday cake crumbs. The situation is more complex than initially reported. And, almost completed, the pilots were depressed to the point of debilitation. "You've gone soft, NX-427, my handler's voice crackled in my skull. "The corporation wants this handled by tomorrow, or they're bringing in the Havoc Squad." I ended the transmission just as Lucy's head popped through the bounce castle entrance. "Nova, you have to come sing happy birthday. Dad says everyone has to sing, even grumpy space princesses." The park was crawling with small humans, all in various states of sugar-induced mania. James had rented out the entire space for Lucy's 7th birthday party, complete with face painting, a cotton candy machine, and what appeared to be a small petting zoo of Earth animals. I'd been invited after our impromptu dinner, partly because Lucy insisted, and partly because James Chen was, apparently, pathologically incapable of not being nice to everyone he met. "The unicorn lady says she can paint your face to match your natural skin color," Lucy announced, dragging me toward the face painting station. "But I told her you can do that yourself because you're cooler than a unicorn." The face painter gave me a curious look. I gave her my best "don't ask questions" glare, which is significantly less effective when you're wearing a party hat. That's when I spotted them, 3 suspicious adults at the park entrance, wearing civilian clothes but moving with military precision. Corporate scouts. They were early. "Lucy," I said carefully, "why don't you go help your dad with the cake?" Lucy regarded me. "But he's talking to Mr. Peterson about the orphans." I froze. "What orphans?" "The alien ones. Lucy said, as if it were obvious. From the bad company. Dad's been helping them find new families. He says everyone deserves a home, even if they're different colors, or have extra arms, or can change their skin like you. Several things clicked into place at once. The sensitive corporate data. The unusually high bounty. James Chen hadn't accidentally discovered financial records or trade secrets. He'd uncovered evidence of corporate trafficking of alien orphans. I watched him now, animated as he spoke with an elderly Martian about placement programs and support systems. This ridiculous human, with his awful dad jokes and heart-shaped pancakes, was systematically dismantling one of the most profitable, illegal operations in the galaxy. Still, Nova? Lucy tugged at my sleeve. Your eyes are doing the glowy thing again. The corporate scouts were getting closer. James was still deep in conversation, oblivious to the danger. And Lucy was looking at me like I was some kind of hero. The kind of person who showed up at birthday parties and had tea with stuffed bears and protected small humans who believed in them. I made a decision that would probably get me expelled from the Assassin's Guild, if they ever found out, which they wouldn't, because corporate scouts have an unfortunate habit of disappearing when they cross paths with me. Lucy, remember how you said the best stories are when the space pirates and the princess become friends? She nodded enthusiastically. Well, sometimes the princess has to protect her friends from bad people. So I need you to do something very brave. Go tell your dad that Mr. Snuggles is feeling sick, and you need to go home right now. But the cake, we'll have cake later, Princess promised. As Lucy ran to her father, I activated my combat systems. The corporate scouts were almost within range, their weapons poorly concealed under civilian clothes. They hadn't counted on facing the galaxy's deadliest assassin. They really should have, but first, I sent one final message to my handler. Contract terminated. Target under my protection. Any further action against James or Lucy Chen will be considered a personal attack on NX-427. Refer to my success record for why that's a bad idea. Sometimes the best stories are the ones where the villain realizes she's been working for the wrong side all along. Not that I'd ever admit Lucy's stuffed bear might have been right about me needing friends. As everyone's story is perfect, mine's at least had some beautiful black and green pages underneath. Here's a pro tip for aspiring assassins. When protecting a target instead of eliminating them, it helps if they actually believe they're in danger. James Chen, however, was complicating my rescue attempt by being unreasonably calm about the whole situation. So, you're not really my new neighbor? He asked as I hurried him and Lucy through the park's maintenance tunnels. That's your question? Not about the heavily armed corporate death squad trying to kill you? Well, Lucy already told me you weren't really a neighbor 2 days ago. She says your molecular structure vibrates at a different frequency than humans. Apparently she can see it. I stopped short, nearly causing James to crash into me. She can what? Nothing too crazy. But it's got to be far-fetched. Lucy, who was clutching both Mr. Snuggles and my spare plasma pistol, unloaded I'm not completely irresponsible, nodded sagely. That's how I knew you were an assassin. But you're a nice assassin because you laugh at Dad's jokes even though they're terrible. They're not terrible, James protested. They're dad jokes. They're supposed to be terrible. That's the whole point. Plasma bolt sizzled past us, melting a section of wall. Can we discuss your awful sense of humor later? I shoved them behind a maintenance panel and activated my combat protocols. My skin shifted to match the metallic walls as 3 Havoc Squad members rounded the corner. You know, James whispered as I readied my weapons, when I uncovered the trafficking operation, I thought the worst they'd do was fire me. Corporate types usually prefer lawsuits to murder. Clearly, you haven't worked in upper management. I fired 2 quick shots, dropping one of the squad members. Most quarterly board meetings end in at least one assassination attempt. Is that why you became an assassin? Too many hostile corporate takeovers? Dad, Lucy sighed with all the exasperation a 7-year-old could muster. She's obviously working through childhood trauma by adopting a profession that gives her control over life and death, while maintaining emotional distance from her targets. We learned about that in art therapy. Both James and I stared at her. What? Ms. Rodriguez lets me read her psychology books when she's watching her soap operas. Another plasma bolt interrupted what was becoming an uncomfortably accurate psychoanalysis of my career choices. The remaining Havoc Squad members were closing in, and I was running out of options that didn't involve property damage. Lucy, I said, remember how princesses sometimes have secret powers? She nodded enthusiastically. Well, I need you and your dad to close your eyes because this princess is about to break several intergalactic weapons treaties. As soon as they covered their eyes, I activated my species' natural bioluminescence at maximum intensity. The flash was bright enough to overload most optical implants, including those used by Havoc Squad for targeting. The resulting fight was brief, efficient, and probably violated at least 15 space station safety regulations. When it was over, 3 unconscious Havoc Squad members lay scattered across the maintenance tunnel, and I had only minimal plasma burns on my favorite assassination outfit. Can we open our eyes now? Lucy asked. Yes, but don't touch anything. Especially not the glowing parts. James was looking at me differently now, with a mixture of gratitude and something else I couldn't quite identify. You could have killed us at any time, couldn't you? I shook my head, blinking. Tiredness had left my mind. My gaze was fixed on the bag clustered on the floor by James Barwell's bed. 17 different ways just during dinner that first night, I confirmed. 23 if you count the spaghetti, but you didn't. Instead, you came to Lucy's birthday party. You let her put glitter in your hair. The glitter was tactical camouflage. You helped her name all her stuffed animals in 3 different alien languages. Linguistic training is important for future space pirates. End of section 5. Linguistic training is important for future space pirates. Read by John Thomas Cooley. You stayed because you cared, Lucy announced, clutching Mr. Snuggles. Just like in the stories, I was saved from having to respond to that uncomfortably accurate observation by the arrival of my handler's message. The contract wasn't just terminated. The entire operation was being exposed. James's evidence, combined with my own considerable documentation of corporate misdeeds, had been leaked to every major galactic news outlet. That's going to make tomorrow's staff meeting awkward, James mused. You're not going to that meeting, I told him. You're going into witness protection, both of you. Will you come with us? Lucy asked. Mr. Snuggles says you need a family too. Ma'am didn't say that to me, Lucy said. I'm an assassin, I reminded her. The best in the galaxy. I work alone. But you're our assassin, she insisted. And you make Dad smile the way Mom used to in the pictures. Plus, you promised we'd have cake later. Princesses can't break promises. The problem slipped away thanks to her promise, and cake landed safely in its rightful place. James was looking at me with that smile again, the one that reached his eyes and made me forget about being a professional. Well, I said finally, someone has to teach you proper space pirate protocols. Mr. Snuggles has been giving you completely inaccurate information about standard rating procedures. The bear, as usual, had no comment. 3 months after what the galactic media dubbed the Great Corporate Orphan Scandal, I found myself doing something far more terrifying than infiltrating hostile territories or eliminating high-value targets. I was chaperoning Lucy Chen's second-grade field trip to the space zoo. And this, I explained to 20 wide-eyed children, is why you never make direct eye contact with a Jovian sand tiger, unless you have chameleonic abilities, or are wearing Class 4 battle armor. Ms. Nova, their teacher interrupted nervously. Perhaps we should move on to the gift shop? But she hasn't finished explaining proper predator evasion techniques, Lucy protested. She had taken to her role as the daughter of a reformed assassin with alarming enthusiasm, treating every day like a combination of tactical training and show and tell. The Witness Protection Program had placed us in a quiet colony on Mars, where James continued his work with orphaned alien children through legitimate channels this time. The Galactic Federation's anti-trafficking task force had made him their chief consultant, though he still somehow managed to make time for making heart-shaped pancakes every Sunday. Then the blanched cow appeared. My former handler occasionally sends me job offers, all of which I politely decline. It's hard to go back to eliminating targets when you spend your evenings helping with math homework and attending tea parties with a surprisingly insightful stuffed bear. "Nova," Lucy called from the gift shop. "Can I get a pet Venusian sheep? I promise to feed it and clean up after it and teach it proper infiltration techniques." James appeared beside me, that familiar smile making his eyes crinkle. "You know, when I first discovered those corporate files, I never imagined it would lead to this. Workouts. Why? Domestic bliss with a reformed assassin?" We'll be talking to Sarai about that tomorrow. I was going to say having someone else to handle the parent-teacher conferences. Do you know how many times Lucy has submitted detailed tactical analyses instead of book reports? She's just thorough, I defended. And her analysis of the three little pigs from a structural fortification perspective was completely valid. Our conversation was interrupted by Lucy running up with not just a stuffed Venusian sheep, but also a plush Jovian sand tiger and what appeared to be an anatomically correct model of a Martian crystal serpent. "Dad, Nova, can we get these for Mr. Snuggles? He needs a proper security detail, now that he's been promoted to Chief Strategic Advisor of tea parties." "Sir, party." James looked at me, eyebrows raised. "What do you think, honey? Should we expand our stuffed animal arsenal?" "Well," I said, trying to maintain some semblance of my former professional demeanor, "tactically speaking, multiple layers of defense are always advisable, even for tea parties." Later that night, after Lucy had arranged her new security team around Mr. Snuggles and finally fallen asleep, I found James in the kitchen attempting to make hot chocolate. "You know," he said, somehow managing to spill cocoa powder everywhere, "Lucy asked me something interesting today. If it's about installing a tactical training course in the backyard, I already said we should wait until she's 8. She asked when you're officially going to become her space mom." I froze, my natural blue color flickering slightly. "And what did you tell her?" James smiled, reaching for my hand. "I told her that's something she should ask you herself, preferably during tomorrow's emergency tea party summit." "You know," I said, "for someone who accidentally stumbled into a corporate conspiracy, you're surprisingly good at tactical planning. I learned from the best, though I still can't change colors when I'm embarrassed." "Trust me," I said, pulling him closer. "You have other qualities that make up for it. And that's how I, the galaxy's deadliest assassin, found my most challenging and rewarding assignment yet, being part of a family. Though I still maintain that my color-changing abilities are strictly for professional purposes, even if I do use them to make Lucy laugh during tea parties.